I'm pleased to introduce, first of all, to the stage, a very important cog in the wheel that is the Racing Foundation. It is our Chief Executive, Tansy Challis, who will formally introduce you to the theme of this year's conference.
Good morning and a really warm welcome to all of you this morning. It's fantastic to see so many people here with us, and we have a great lineup of speakers and panel members expertly hosted by Rishi. And this year we've also added a discussion-based workshop to the afternoon session because we figured the passion, expertise and intelligence in this room is an excellent opportunity to all work together to address some of the issues we face in racing. To start with, I'm aware that some of you may not be quite so familiar with the work of Racing Foundation, so we thought we would just play you a very quick video to highlight some of the projects we fund in our key areas of focus. So it will just give you a very quick overview of what we do. To set the scene for today's conference, the Racing Foundation's purpose is to work in partnership with the racing industry to help create a sustainable future for our sport. This includes a commitment to helping develop understanding and action around the key issues we face and to enable a joined-up approach. As part of our current strategy, we have identified a growing need to build racing social license, and we have updated our key areas of focus to reflect this. But what do we mean by social license, and why is it important? In perhaps its simplest form, social license refers to the public's perception of an industry or an activity. When that activity has society's approval or acceptance, it is said to have a social license to operate. The principle of social license centers around two key measures: acceptance and trust. A business with social license is more likely to be sustainable, which means industries will need to build trust and seek acceptance if they are to thrive in the long term, and racing is no different. We are told that it's no longer acceptable to use tradition or our inward-facing knowledge as a reason to resist change. We must be more outward-facing. To provide some perspective, I heard some statistics earlier this year at the TBA's conference. I thought I would just share the stats that we were given by the opening speaker. We were told that 15 million people in Britain watched England's opening match against Serbia at this year's Football Euros. So 15 million, which means roughly 55 million people didn't. But in contrast, 1.5 million people watched this year's Epsom Derby, which means 68.5 million people did not watch it on the television. So what does this tell us? It probably tells us that it's important to consider that our relevance to others and how they may see us differs from our own. That those outside of racing don't have our knowledge and our passion or our understanding, and they have different interests and different perspectives. It tells us that we must consider the opinion of those outside our sport if we are to maintain and seek acceptance and trust. We can learn from those outside of racing who have successfully built their social license to operate, and we are honoured to have with us today Bob Langert, the former Vice President of CSR and Sustainability at McDonald's, who will shortly provide you with an overview of how he addressed the issues of facing the global chain and how he transformed its social licence efforts. Some of these issues, as you will hear, linked to animal welfare. This will resonate with us because clearly horse welfare, aftercare, and the use of horses in sport is an important issue for us to address as part of maintaining our social licence. We're not alone in this, and I'm delighted to see there are representatives from other equestrian bodies in the room today, and indeed the Racing Foundation has funded some research being led by World Horse Welfare in collaboration with the other equestrian sports to seek to understand what the public think about horse sports, what they think, why they think as they do, and consider what do we need to do to build their acceptance and trust. We will hear from Rowley Owers, the Chief Exec of World Horse Welfare, in a little while this morning to provide us an update on that research. And we will also hear from Michael Bishop, the Chief Executive of the RDA, who will provide us with another equestrian perspective. He will consider the role of social relevance and for improving social licence. We must remember, though, that it's not just horse welfare. There are many, many other topics that we need to consider in the industry to address our social licence. Diversity and inclusion, social impact, environmental sustainability, these are just a few, and we need to understand how society views them all. The title of this conference also mentions changing societal expectations. These play an important role in understanding social licence. The views and expectations of society are constantly evolving, so we must be fluid in our approach. Some of the things that my parents' generation think and do are no longer acceptable to my generation. Some of the things that my generation think and do are no longer acceptable to the younger generation. And inevitably, some of the things that the current younger generation think and do will not be acceptable to the next generation. But why is it important to consider the younger generation, and how do we engage with them? Whilst we in this room will instantly recognise this jockey and regard him as very high profile, I wonder how many of those outside of racing would recognise Ryan Moore. Now, I purposely didn't choose Frankie Dettori because he's an anomaly, but for this purpose, Ryan Moore. On the flip side, in this room, how many of us would recognise this young lady? This young lady is Esme Higgs, who is one of the biggest influencers in the equestrian world. She has 260,000 followers on Instagram, 412 followers on TikTok, and 281 million views on her YouTube channel. She's not opposed to racing. She is an equestrian fanatic with an influential voice amongst the younger generation of equestrian fans. To ensure the sustainability of our sport, we will surely need to listen to Esme. We will surely also need to listen to her non-equestrian contemporaries and engage with the next generation for the sport. With this in mind, we're also delighted to welcome later on a panel of young people who are working in the industry who will discuss social licence from a Generation Z perspective. They will explain their personal experiences accessing the sport, the barriers they may have faced, and give us their views on how we may attract the next generation of racegoers, fans, owners, jockeys, yard staff. I would like to just touch shortly on the role of social media. I'm not an expert, you'll be hearing from one later, and I work on the assumption that you probably know who this is, so obviously it's Taylor Swift, but what has she got to do with horse racing or this conference? Possibly more than you realise, and some of you may remember the headline from a few years ago where Taylor Swift cancelled a concert that she was due to perform at the Melbourne Cup in Australia after the event came under fire from animal rights activists. Given she has 284 million Instagram followers, this is clearly a big deal. But how big of a deal? What is the power of social media? Let's have a quick look again at Taylor Swift, albeit from a non-racing activity. Let's take the current US presidential election campaign. Following last month's Trump-Harris debate, Taylor Swift informed her Instagram followers that she planned to vote for Kamala Harris and encouraged the younger fans to register to vote. Within hours, the website to which she directed her fans recorded 35,000 registrations. The number of 18-year-olds now registered to vote in the US has doubled. It's hard to doubt the power of social media, but what more can we do? With this in mind, we'll be joined later by Dom Matcham, the founder and managing director of Invades. He will explain how he thinks the industry can better harness social media to influence social license with the younger demographic and attract our next generation of racegoers. Before I hand you back into the very capable hands of Rishi, I'd like to acknowledge, because I think it's really important, the work already being done by industry stakeholders in all of these areas. This should not be underestimated, and there is a desire to work together to address racing social licence challenges. We'll be hearing from Jockey Club Chief Executive Nevin Truesdale later, who will speak about the rule changes implemented for the 2024 Randox Grand National. But we should also pay tribute to the wide range of work being driven forward by many, many industry stakeholders. The list is extensive. This is just a few examples on the screen behind me, but there are so many more. We should be proud, we should celebrate, and we should raise awareness of all of this work and everything done by racing stakeholders. It's good to see we have journalists in the room with us today, and I hope they will help us with our endeavour to raise awareness. Finally, I would like to thank our speakers and panel members for giving their time, and to thank Racing Foundation trustee Rishi Prasad for hosting the whole event. I would also like to acknowledge the real hard work that has been put into organising this conference for us today by my colleagues, Lee Jones, Antonia Bullrich, and Rihanna Slade-Jones. Thanks also to you for giving up your time today and showing your interest in the topic of social licence. We hope you enjoy your day with us. Thank you.